Hello everybody. I need to apologise for this because I've already put the wheel on, and the reason for that is that putting everything back on means a fair amount of kneeling for me, and my knees are not what they used to be, so I've done it like this instead. But I just want to talk through what I did just to clarify the parts. Okay, so on the left hand side of the bike you'll see that there is an axle bolt that runs through here. That was cleaned off and lightly greased and inserted in there in anticipation of doing everything else. Okay, now within the final gear case there are splines that are very obvious, and you'll see that they match up to the splines within the back wheel. Both of those have been lightly greased, and when you put the back wheel on the spline, the back wheel just sits there ready for the rest of the stuff to be on. So you don't have to hold anything, you can just put it on there and then work on the rest of the stuff. Now on this side there's a number of things that we've got to look after. Now there is a spacer which goes in here, sort of a T-shaped spacer. Sorry, you can't focus that properly, but there's a T-shaped spacer in there. Now between the spacer and this caliper support bracket is a washer. Now I initially thought, because I couldn't remember, that the washer would go behind the castellated nut on the end, and apparently it doesn't. In order to get this caliper support bracket to sit properly on the frame, the washer was required behind it, or between the support bracket and the wheel spacer. So do remember, makes it a little awkward to get this thing assembled, but persevere, because I think that's the way that it should be done. Drive the axle nut, but the axle bolt through this assembly and expose the threads at the end here. Now you'll see, if I can just pop that R-clip out, there is a hole at the end of the axle bolt, which is where the R-clip will sit once the castellated nut is tight. Don't over tighten the castellated nut. Snug it up and then find an appropriate position whereby you can get the R-clip through. Okay, and that's basically it. The caliper then needs to be applied. You might find it a bit fiddly to keep the brake pads out of the way, but persevere. And it means working on my back underneath, and it wouldn't have been a popular thing. The language would have been terrible. Okay, so that's what I've done. Put everything back, and as you can see, the wheel is back on the bike. Now just one minor observation: if you're putting a wheel back on because it's new, do remember this glossy look to the tyre is actually a sort of a wax that they use in order to get the tyre out of the mould at the factory. So this needs to be scuffed off. Now you can either do it with a light application of a wire brush or just ride carefully. But from bitter memory, do be aware that if you over accelerate before you've scuffed up your tyres, you might get spat off, as I was in Lancaster once, much to my embarrassment. Okay, so do remember, run these tyres in other words, scuff them off from one side to the other so that you're riding safely. Okay, so there we are, nearly ready for the rear mudguard to go back on, and I'll be doing that over this weekend coming, so hope to see you then. Thank you very much.